Dear friends, I assume that you have already learned the working principle of a rocket, objectives of rocket launches, and how rocketry gets beneficial to mankind. In this module, we will be discussing another interesting topic in rocketry. The satellite that we launch with the help of a rocket becomes beneficial to mankind only once it reaches its destined orbit around the Earth. Hence, it is very important to place the satellite in its target orbit with a high degree of precision. Have you ever wondered who drives a rocket till it reaches the orbit? Yes, that's exactly the question we are going to answer in this video. If I ever ask you the question, who drives a rocket, what all would be the probable answers that I can get? In this era of space tourism and human spaceflight, it won't be too surprising if some of you imagined a man handling the steering wheel of a rocket. But the truth is that it is not possible for a human to drive the rocket which is traveling at a very high speed. Moreover, most of the rockets that we use today are meant to be used only once. In other words, these rockets are expendable. Hence, it is quite a difficult effort to bring the human driving the rocket back to Earth safely. Some of you might have imagined that the rocket can be driven from the Earth by means of a computer system, just the way a toy car is driven with a remote controller. That is quite an interesting thought too, but that also is not a possible option. Reason being, the rocket travels at very high speed far away from the Earth's surface. What alternatives do we have? How many of you have imagined a rocket that can drive by itself and reach the target orbit on its own? It is indeed possible if the rocket is equipped with a thinking brain. That, in fact, is the answer to the question. The rocket houses a computer brain, otherwise known as the onboard computer, capable of driving the rocket to its intended orbit. This onboard computer is the key to controlling each and every functionality of the rocket and thereby take the satellite to the targeted orbit in a fuel efficient manner. Now let us see how the onboard computer controls the trajectory of the rocket. The major subsystems that determine the trajectory of a rocket are navigation, guidance, and control or digital autopilot. Together, they are known as the NGC system. The navigation system functions analogous to the sensory organs in a human body. The duty of the navigation system is to sense position, velocity, and other states of the rocket and to communicate this information to guidance and digital autopilot from time to time. I assume that you have already acquired some knowledge on the navigation subsystem from the previous video. The functionalities of navigation, guidance, and control can be further explained with the help of an interesting analogy. Imagine the rocket as a car traveling on a road. There are 3 passengers in the car. The one sitting on top of the car is carefully observing each and every movement of the car and is announcing these movements to those sitting inside the car. The passenger inside the car listens to the announcements and frames instructions to guide the car from its current position to its destination. These instructions are communicated to the third person who is sitting in the driver's seat of the car. The driver, who is blindfolded, listens to the unambiguous instructions and executes them. Among the 3, the one who sits atop represents navigation. The second one in the passenger seat represents guidance, and the blindfolded driver represents digital autopilot. Similar to how the coordinated efforts of these 3 people takes the car to its destination, the coordinated functioning of the NGC system takes the rocket together with the satellite to its destined orbit. Next, we are going to discuss the classifications in guidance system. Guidance system can be broadly classified as open loop guidance and closed loop guidance. To understand the classifications in guidance, let us take another look at the same analogy. Open loop guidance is a very simple strategy. To understand open loop guidance, just imagine that the second passenger inside the car is also blindfolded, which means the second person, otherwise the guidance, is not completely aware of the current position or velocity of the car. Still, he continues to give instructions to the driver, otherwise the autopilot, which will guide the car to its destination. Even though guidance is unaware of the current position and velocity of the vehicle, it is able to give these instructions because guidance had memorized a set of instructions to be given to the autopilot based on a map that was prepared before the start of the journey. In simple terms, open loop guidance is a strategy to generate guidance commands even in the absence of instantaneous position and velocity information based on a map or plan prepared well before the start of the journey. Closed loop guidance is a bit complicated yet a very effective guidance strategy compared to the open loop guidance. Let us go back to the analogy. The fact that how closed loop guidance differ from open loop guidance totally depend on the state of the second passenger. In closed loop guidance, the second passenger is neither blindfolded nor has memorized any set of instructions based on a map or plan. Instead, just imagine that he is carrying a GPS enabled mobile phone. Since the second person is not blindfolded, he is very much aware of the current position and velocity of the vehicle. Now the question to be answered is, how does a GPS enabled mobile phone differ from a pre-planned travel map? A predefined map only shows a single path to be taken in order to reach the destination. Also, the map doesn't contain any information about the condition of the road or the obstacles in the path. On the contrary, a GPS enabled mobile phone shows multiple paths to reach a destination. Moreover, it also shows the traffic conditions, condition of the road, and other obstacles in the route. With all this information at disposal, guidance is able to command relevant instructions to the autopilot and thereby take the vehicle to its destination in a very effective manner. Here, what makes a closed loop guidance strategy superior to an open loop guidance strategy is its capability to process the instantaneous information on position and velocity of the vehicle and derive steering commands while the vehicle is actually being driven. Closed loop is inevitable for launch vehicles to carry the satellite and inject them into a desired orbit with utmost precision and accuracy. Next, we are going to discuss the autopilot system. Autopilot system to a rocket is as important as a driver to a car. The primary functionality of autopilot is to ensure the stability of the rocket. It also follows the instructions commanded by the guidance to keep the rocket in its route to the orbit. As per the analogy, let us assume that guidance is instructing the autopilot to take a 90-degree turn to the left. Upon getting the instruction, it is the responsibility of the autopilot to decide the extent to which the steering wheel has to be turned. The efficiency of the autopilot is evaluated based on the accuracy with which the guidance instructions are executed. There are a number of things that differentiate a rocket from a car. One of them is that a rocket doesn't have a steering wheel. Then, how is a rocket able to change its course as per the instructions of the guidance system? The Newton's third law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, being the basic principle of rocket science, is applied in the process of controlling its course as well. The force that is carrying the rocket forward is nothing but a reaction to the action of expelling the burning propellant through the rocket's nozzle. In such a scenario, even a small tilt to the nozzle manifests as a strong controlling force which is capable enough to maneuver it. Based on this principle, Autopilot carries out the humongous task of executing the guidance commands effortlessly. Functions of the autopilot doesn't end there. A launch vehicle, being a complex system by itself, faces a number of unfavorable conditions during its flight to orbit. Even minor movements in a fuel tank filled with liquid propellant can make the rocket unstable. The autopilot maintains the stability of the rocket even under such adverse flight conditions. Behind every successful rocket launch, the coordinated efforts of navigation, guidance, and autopilot is imperative. Failure to even one among these eventually leads to the failure of the mission itself. Hope this video was interesting and informative to all of you. Thank you.